Good afternoon and welcome to the Day After Podcast and our fun sub show, Too Many KUBRICKS, where we watch and review every Stanley Kubrick film in chronological order. On this episode, we are tackling a fan favorite, although it's hard for this man to have an objective favorite with how many masterpieces he's made. This is 1968's 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick and written by Arthur C. Clarke, who is also writing in tandem the novelization of this film.
Yeah, it was as he was writing both at the same time. There's a lot of thoughts with this one. This is a big one.
Here's where we're at now. I've started editing these and they've started coming out. So we're halfway through the series and they're now coming out. I feel intimidated because with Killer's Kiss and with Fear and Desire, you could shit out 15-minute dunk fests. This feels like it deserves your attention and more of your time.
There's so many things to talk about with this movie, even though like very little happens, but yet so much happens.
It doesn't. I'll start off with the most superficial comment that I was really hanging on to. This is the most aggressively slow movie I have ever seen,
and I'm glad you brought that up first. And I think this is the initial thing that any new viewer to this movie has to be aware of. This is one of these movies where it demands you change your viewing metabolism.
Like you go into hypersleep to watch this movie.
Yes, and I was talking earlier, and I mentioned Tarkovsky. He has the same thing. Like the movie Stalker, Solaris, Andrei Rublev. There's like this initial 30 minutes of the movie that's just kind of go, look, this is for you to slow down on, okay?
Yeah. If you walk, because we're gonna watch some bullshit that you'll hear about in 2 months after this. We don't know what yet, but it would have been impossible to start with that bullshit and go here. You don't watch bullshit and watch this. This is your palate cleanser for the day.
So like, and this is why there's parts about this movie where I'm giving it. I don't want to say I'm giving it a pass on certain things, but what I am trying to intentionally do is recognize as different goals in terms of pacing and story structure than most movies, or even most of Stanley Kubrick's other movies. To judge it on certain standards, I think it would, like, there's some parts where Stanley would go, yeah, I get you. I totally agree. I wasn't trying to do that.
Yeah. You never know the man's intentions. I was reading during. I don't mean to disrespect the movie. When there's no talking and there's just 20 minutes of special effects near the end, I was reading some fun facts, and Stanley Kubrick has said during interviews in the 60s, the only intentional joke in this entire movie is the zero-gravity toilet.
It's not even funny.
What, were you going to judge the man? I thought
yes,
it was hysterical.
That man made Killing in Desire, or Fear and Desire. There we go. I judge him.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. Here's another point, if I may just keep the train rolling. I am never, ever, ever a fan of, the effects haven't aged well, but if you think about them in the context of this, you're like, holy shit, the flashing images on the wall of the Willy Wonka tunnel were incredible if you think about the 70s. I hate that logic. But if you look at this movie, the effects are very good. When you tell somebody they came from the 60s, they go, holy fucking shit.
Oh yeah, these effects hold up fantastically.
I'm offended how well these hold up. It's 62% of their $10 million budget went to special effects.
This is, and also keep in mind that this was made during an era where like the space age had only been around for the space race had only been around for 10 years. And there were still movies where, we need to, make a cheap sci-fi movie. What are we going to do? Send men in gas masks to the moon.
They can be made cheaply because they were in the public consciousness.
Yeah, and like a Star Trek was just, basically a room with blinky buttons. And like during the time of this movie, men, like the first men to take a trip around the dark side of the moon had just returned.
Yeah.
So this is trying to convey to the viewing public the cutting edge of the experience of being in space.
The absolute bleeding knife of special effects.
Where there are so many times where like we know this. Of course, I mean, how many times did we like turn our heads and go, how did he do that shot?
It comes up the first time when the sleeping man has lost his pen and is floating through the cabin, and I said, if that woman picks that pen up on frame, I'm gonna scream.
Or some Dave and Frank are going down a spinning tunnel to a spinning room, and we're thinking, okay, well, at least I was confused which one was actually spinning.
Not aware, yeah, it's all very relative in space, as you see, but I think this is one of the movies where it's okay to go, how do they do that? It would get in the way of the narrative of, say, the next movie, Clockwork Orange, if you were always going, how do they establish that shot?
Well, yes, but so much of this movie is not plot, it's atmosphere.
Yeah, damn right. I was really shocked that 40 minutes was gone. I expected this to be kind of a slog, and in some parts it might be, but it's a very brisk 40 minutes.
So yeah, so much of it is more about trying to give you a feeling. But with that said, there are characters. And in my opinion, the fullest character is not even human. Whether or not he truly is conscious in the world of the show, he's got character motivation, he's got hidden intentions. He beats the Turing test over the head with a bone. Yeah, there's the question of, is he lying, and what does it mean for an AI to lie? Because there's this whole mental game that consciousness has to play to even understand what lying is. Mm-hmm. And he can fear, and he can. That wonderful when Dave is taking out his memory cores.
His cores, yeah.
And he can go, don't. I'm afraid. I can feel it.
That's upsetting.
I can feel it.
That's upsetting. We're all gonna die, and to hear like that happen in an I must scream kind of way, that's upsetting.
And for me, I'm someone who's like, one of my actual fears is dying, but the mind going before the body. Like when you're essentially when Dave is giving Hal like super speed Alzheimer's, and he's going, I can feel it.
That's upsetting. God, that's upsetting. Fuck.
He can feel the oncoming of death.
Yeah. Alfonso Cuarón, great guy. Gravity with Sandra Bullock is amazing, but this movie knows when to shut the fuck up. And there's long periods of just air hissing and Stanley Kubrick providing breath noises in the background while that's a lot of very tactile, claustrophobic sounds. I know editing this channel for 4 years, I've come to be very aware of room hiss, and when you can tighten up those things, that's a really cool not positive, but purposeful sound piece of sound direction.
So, and it's like, what we have classical music when we're near the planet Earth. We have like the Penderecki choral chaos and pandemonium when we're near
choral chaos. Yeah,
when we're near the monolith, and when we're out in space and near none of those things, it's just breathing and hissing because that's the only thing to hear. You're just left in the cocoon of your own spacesuits.
It's wild. Another. I hate the logic about how. Of course, that wasn't a mistake. Stanley actually meant to do this because... and I know he's a perfectionist. He's one of the most intensely perfectionist directors who has ever lived. To the point where they shot enough film to film this movie 200 times over. Seriously? So 0.5% of what they shot made it into the movie.
Holy shit. Okay.
But I'm not saying that some things that he did...
He found a fuck up, everybody!
I never thought about... I'm not saying whether he actually made a mistake here. I just notice, for instance, when they're having the very bland government security meeting, there is some it's room reverb that implies a medium to small sized room, and I don't want to say the audio was perfect because what is perfect, but it was giving a sense of dynamism about the sound space. So it was bouncing. It's like when we moved from the old recording space to this room we're in now. If I turn off all the filters, here's an example. It sounds kind of like crap. Here's this without any audio mixing. But if I turn it back on, you see now it's much more not dynamic, but it's much more controlled. And I feel like Stanley, I'm wondering if he let that weird room reverb slip a little bit, just to give it a sense of you are in space. And you couldn't give it that sense of scale when he's in the weird airport full of chairs.
It's fucking chairs.
It's fucking okay.
Stanley is chairs.
You ever see some chairs and you're like, wow, that chair really belongs there. Oh god. This is going to be a shorter one than I thought.
Stanley chairs in that weird egg chair in Men in Black. Only chairs I remember in movies.
The most... Welcome to Watch Mojo Top 10, and today we're counting down the top picks for our top 10 chairs in film. But first, hit that bell. Anyway, now's the time for straggling thoughts, because I can feel us slowing down. I have one, if that's okay. I like, for the sake of humor, I like shitting on myself. First time I saw this movie, I was like, wow, how do they get actual monkeys to be in those scenes? It's so amazing. They train them to beat the guy with the club and to have a cheetah jump on him. That's so intense. It's one of those critical thinking things where you think about it for a second, you're like, I'm an idiot. So I know now, but now it's like every time I watch this movie, I'm going to be thinking of how much of an idiot I was. No, those are men in monkey outfits. And
okay, related to straggling thoughts about the baggage that I bring to this movie, and I think this is one of those movies that everyone has baggage about it, even if they haven't seen it.
It's been referenced to death. It's been called on Wikipedia one of the most influential movies ever made.
So, and so much of this movie depends on its soundtrack, like the Monolith song with the Zarathustra.
Yes.
For Johnny,
I kept making jokes about how that's the song scoring Jackass 2's stunt, Big Red Rocket.
And for me, it's Ric Flair coming in his glittery bathrobe, going,
"What a fucking self-centered bitch that you put Zarathustra." Whatever, it's fine. Only one person can have that.
So like that's. The movie is so iconic, but that iconoclasm comes with this baggage for everybody that's seen it, and it has to fight it. It has to.
It's science marches onward. Like this movie is more famous than Daisy riding a bike will ever be.
I'm imagining some millennial or Gen Z person looking at that trippy thing and going, "Oh, that's a crappy screensaver."
It is when you use a fucking split screen machine that you make for this effect, never been done. But fuck you and your 85 years of you sons of bitch. They're trying to make good effects. Pokemon won't show up for 30 more years. Give them a fucking I'm sorry. I'm mad at these hypothetical youngins that don't. Mm-hmm. God, I'm fucking old. I'm gonna turn 30 this year.
I wanted to ask you about one thing before we get on to final thoughts.
Yeah, please.
I have read and have been told that when the first generation of viewers watched this movie, the ending tripped them the fuck out, and everyone was like, "What the fuck was that? What is that supposed to even mean?" And I get why there's some confusion, and I don't exactly have total understanding of what the hell the ending means. But I don't understand why they're totally clueless.
Yeah, to say that it is one of the most inexcusably hard to understand movies of all time, maybe pushing it a little bit. But if you could wrap it, if you can get somebody 70% of the way there with 2 sentences, that's not quite as difficult. It's like, this is mankind going through evolution.
Yeah, it's them being elevated by the alien race, and it's of course it would be confusing because we're watching it from our level.
And also you were like, when it does the very, very famous match cut of the bone to the nuclear warhead, which was funny, by the way. It was one of the first weapons to the ultimate weapon match cut. You starkly were like, remember when people were like, are they going to know what a cut is? Here's 500 million years.
Yeah, so like I get why people are confused, but I don't understand why it's the most enigmatic ending of all time.
Wikipedia did use the word enigmatic.
I accept the fact that it is an extraordinarily slow movie, but I respect and I tremendously admire its attempt to create this kind of an experience that is almost mind-altering. I wouldn't call this movie is almost more it's not science fiction, it's metaphysical. It's an attempt to be a metaphysical movie. And that comes with some hindrances, and there's not really a set way to do it. So it comes off as odd and weird. But I like that they're trying to make that jump.
It's really interesting that you say metaphysical because the Wikipedia, sorry to like throw them under the bus here, has called this one of the quote hardest science fiction film ever made in terms of scientific accuracy. One thing I'll give this movie is that if you close your eyes and think about classic Kubrick shots, I think the one at the top of my list now is one when the monkey is hitting shit with when he first figures out how to use a bone as a hammer, and the camera is on the ground and then the thing flies. That's, I think, for me right now, top Kubrick shot. But they're all going to start coming really, really, really fast. Guys, thanks for joining.
Oh, wait, yeah, sorry, I didn't quite finish with the thing. One of the things about this that I respect and admire is that when science fiction is done, it is frequently it frequently glazes over the fact that the arena of extreme scientific ideas is not suitable for human drama. The theater is just not in proportion for the drama of a human story. So when you try to put in human drama on that stage, it just gets tremendously distorted and stretched. And particularly time is one of those things.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it gives you a glimpse of the fact of just the tremendous time scale, even just a shadowy projection of it, of just how long universal time scales are. And that's why this movie sometimes feels to drag. It's trying to give you that sense of the universe's time scale. So that's, again, why I admire the movie's attempt to try to get us in a different frame of mind. I understand, though, that it comes across as boring as hell.
It can be, it can be extremely boring, which is why you watch this first, bullshit second. Thinking about this got me excited. I don't mean to get to step second foot in front of the first foot, but thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Too Many Kubricks, where we watch and review every Kubrick film in chronological order. Join us in 1 week for one of my favorites, 1971's A Clockwork Orange, starring some people. But it's one of my favorites. I can't wait.